Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today, we need to take a look at a new Seaking card. I know, right? It's not a Pokemon we get to look at all that often. It's not a card or a Pokemon that generally has pretty good cards. But I tell you what, I kind of like this Seaking. But it really depends how lucky you're feeling. But in terms of energy removal and energy denial, it's about the best we've got. Let me explain. I should mention, of course, that our translation comes from the lovely David Hockman over at limitlesstcg.com/translations, one of our favourites, by which I mean people, not just Pokemon translators, one of our favourite people. David's awesome. So yeah, retreat cost of 2, kind of rubbish. But we do have Balloon nowadays that does let you retreat for 2 less, so could be worse. Weakness to Lightning kind of sucks. Morpeko V is particularly good right now, and yes, their main attack will one-hit KO you anyway, but now their first attack will do a bunch of damage, and they've got cards like Electro Power, so it's not the best, weakness to have right now, if I'm honest with you. You are a water Pokemon though, which means you're hitting weakness against stuff like Reshiram and Charizard. And any welder-based deck, and welder-based decks at the moment are, to put it very subtly, pretty gosh darned awesome. And it means you can always accelerate energy using stuff like Naganadel and Quagsire, though honestly, I just don't think you're going to need to here. You see, the hook of Seaking is for 1 water energy, you flip 3 coins, and for each heads that you hit, you discard 1 energy from your opponent's active Pokemon. So essentially here, what you're aiming to do is get rid of all of your opponent's energy. Now, it's not always going to work, let's be clear about this. But if this does work, you're undoing a welder and a manual attachment in one go. You're undoing Pikachu and Zekrom's full blitz in one attack. Now, you're not doing any damage here. This is not an attack you're going to use to try and whittle down the health of the opposing Pokemon, take them out and take some prizes. That is not what this deck aims to do. It is not your goal, and it is frankly not on the cards, pun intended. No, ladies and gentlemen, that's not what we're doing here. What we're doing here is sitting here getting rid of your opponent's energy and making sure that your opponent just doesn't have anything that they can actually do. Trying to run them out of energy before they run you out of Pokemon. Now, you do only have 110 HP, but you also don't give up a prize. And this seems like the kind of Pokemon that would be a phenomenal candidate to use Shedinja. You see, Shedinja's that Pokemon that you can essentially attach to one of your Pokemon as a Pokemon tool. And when it is attached as a Pokemon tool, it doesn't give up a prize. So now essentially what you're doing is trying to get rid of all of your opponent's energy while not letting them take any prizes. And then at one point during the game, your opponent turns around, they've got no energy, they're out, there's nothing they can do. And then you get to sit there and be like, ha! That's how this works. That's what this does. Now, getting rid of free energy is particularly good. And it is pretty much the best option we've got here. I mean, take Fearow, for example. Fearow, this is the one from Unbroken Bonds. For 2 energy, you get to flip a coin, and if heads, you discard 2 energy from your opponent's active Pokemon. Well, great if you flip heads. Pretty bad if you flip tails. Now, back in the day, we actually had Dialga G Level X, and this was one of the best Pokemon in the format, right? This was nuts good. But what it would essentially allow you to do with the attack on the Level X was flip a coin until you hit tails, and for every head, you got to remove an energy from your Pokemon and pop it into the Lost Zone. So not just discard, but actually put it in the Lost Zone. But the thing is, there's a 50-50 chance of doing nothing. Here, you can flip 2 tails in a row, and then still flip a heads, and get rid of 1 energy from your opponent's Pokemon. Is that perfect? No! Of course it's not perfect. But it ain't half bad, ladies and gentlemen. it ain't half bad. Now, obviously, at this stage, it would be great if I could tell you we still had something in the format like Victini or Trick Coin. Something that would allow you to reflip the coins if the coins did not initially go in your favor. Well, I'm sorry to report, ladies and gentlemen, there is no such card at the moment. So you are actually just flipping coins. Now, actually hitting 3 heads is a 1 in 8 chance, 12.5%. But then, by the same token, flipping 3 tails and getting none is the same 12.5%. You should, over the course of 2 flips, hit 3 energy. There'll be the amazing turns where you hit 3, and the terrible turns where you hit none. But what you would do in a deck like this is you would build it around this attack. There's nothing to stop you playing a Ditto Prism Star, and then just putting 1 copy of this in, and then playing that new Aurora Energy card, which is, it's basically Rainbow Energy, right? But instead of taking a damage counter when you attach it, you have to discard a card from your hand. And you could do this and just at one point during the game try and screw your opponent out of their energy. It is possible. And the more I say it, even though I'm telling you it's not going to work and it's not a great idea, I'm kind of thinking like it might work and it is a great idea. My point is, it's cool and it might work. But really what you're doing here is you're building a deck around Energy Denial. You're playing this Seaking, but you're also playing Crushing Hammer, and then putting yourself at the mercy of coin flips, which might drive you crazy. And you're playing stuff like Team Yell Grunt. Now, don't get me wrong, I know that Team Yell Grunt doesn't discard energy, lets you take an energy attached to one of your opponent's Pokemon and put it back into their hand, but it's still removing energy from them, so it's A-okay by me. And hopefully you're using Shedinja, and essentially you're running your opponent out of energy. Now, against some decks, it's not going to work. Against a Malamar deck, you keep discarding the energy, they keep reattaching it. Now, it might work eventually, because Malamar can only attach to bench Pokemon, so you might be able to run them out of energy and run them out of switching options, and then they've got a whole bunch of energy attached to their bench Pokemon, but they've got no energy on the active, no way to get it out the active, and they deck out. That is possible. That could happen. Similarly with Naganadel, you could run the energy off the active, and then they just attach themselves on the bench, and that doesn't work. But of course, if it's a Naganadel Quagsire deck, one of these water decks, they can always just attach the energy to Naganadel and then move it to the active using Quagsire, at which point, yeah, unfortunately at that stage you are going to be a little bit out of luck. But there's going to be plenty of decks where this might work. Maybe Welder decks will be a little bit fast, or maybe you can get rid of their energy faster, they can welder it back on. Although do remember they'll be likely to be playing stuff like Fire Crystal to get that energy back. And then you get the decks that don't accelerate much energy. Lightning decks that tend to use Thunder Mountain, Prism Star and Tapu Koko in the early game, but then basically run out of steam unless they can accelerate more energy. That's where you come in. Blastoise and Piplup decks that try and get a bit of energy on Blastoise and Piplup early, and then keep rolling by attacking with Blastoise and Piplup. A Blastoise and Piplup deck that isn't playing Quagnag, if you can get rid of the energy on the board, they basically lose. These are the versions where they're using red and blue just to put a little bit of energy on there. This could work, ladies and gentlemen. This could absolutely work. Now, there is a second attack here. It's not really what we're looking for. It's not our main goal of the deck. 2 colorless energy, 50 damage is frankly disappointing and a bit rubbish. Yes, it's an evolved Pokemon, so you can use triple acceleration energy. No, you will hardly ever want to use it. It will KO Snom, and Ditto Prism Star, and some really weak fire Pokemon, but generally speaking, no. You're in there for the first attack, and your goal is simple. Either it's an emergency tech, where you're just chucking it in to try and get one turn of screwing your opponent out of their energy, or you build a deck around it and it's a proper energy denial deck. But this is what it does, and that's why I'm giving it 3 Wassies. I don't think it's going to go being the best deck in the format, but I do think it's a fun card we should all be having to play around with. But at this stage, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to know what you think about this. So, I don't know, maybe let me know in the comment section. Go nuts, be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassie, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/TheWassie. patreon.com/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassiePlays, where you can find out about a whole bunch of games that don't have Pokemon in, but are still pretty gosh darned awesome. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.